BookTube, welcome to Jackie's Letter Corner. I am Jackie and it's time for a reading update as well as a book haul. I went to Gibbons Bookshop just a little bit. In fact, just got back from that trip, so I will also haul some books as well. So, reading update. So, I just finished Miss Austen by Jill Hornby for my Jane Austen July. That is a sad book. There's a sadness to it, a melancholiness to that book. Because, I mean, especially, if you know what happened to Jane Austen historically, it's basically about her sister, and it's 10 years after her sister has passed, so it tells her story, what happened to her after her sister's passing, but it's not nonfiction. It's historical fiction. So like there's some made up content as well in there. Like there's actually letters that Cassandra's reading because she goes to Kintbury where the Fowles live, and the Fowles were the family of Tom, the man that Cassandra was going to marry. And their families kind of stay linked together. They stay connected. I think like one of the daughters married one of Jane and Cassandra's brothers, I think, something like that. And so she goes to visit them in the book, and she's trying to find some letters that her sister might have hidden in their house, and she's trying to make sure no one sees those letters except for her, so she can preserve her sister's legacy, protect her sister's secrets. And that apparently I read the author's note in the book, and the actual letters are made up. I mean, they were letters obviously exchanged between the sisters, but a lot of the content, all the letters that Jill Hornby put in there are made up. So I don't know what other parts are fiction. But I do, in the author's note, she did say that Cassandra did go back. I think she said that Cassandra does go to Kintbury. And of course, who everybody marries and all that is true and all. But I really liked it. Like, I feel like everyone knows Jane Austen because she's the famous author, that her books are still beloved today. But people don't, unless you're reading a biography about Jane Austen or any other nonfiction about Jane Austen, you don't know about her family. Which maybe they referred it that way. But unless you're actually researching Jane Austen and her life, you're not going to hear a lot about her family. Although I think thanks to Becoming Jane, that movie with Anne Hathaway, I think that's when it kind of started to bring to light Jane Austen's family a little bit more. Now that, from what I hear, is not accurate at all. Like, probably the only thing that's accurate about that is like maybe the setting, and maybe the personality of the characters. But like the events in that, like her relationship with Tom Lefroy was, I think I heard, was exaggerated for that movie. They weren't as passionate. But I think that kind of brought to light her family a little bit more, or at least brought to my attention her family a little bit more. And which I think and it's kind of funny because one of their friends who marries their brother James, he is a poet, and the poetry is real. It's his real poetry in the book. But they have these scenes where his wife Mary is always like dismissing Jane's work and saying her husband's work is superior and better, and poetry is better than novel writing, and which I think is debatable. I think they're about equal footing. And also, poetry doesn't connect with everybody. Some people just cannot get into poetry because it's not like straightforward explaining things. It's all metaphors and symbolism, and it's free verse, so people are just writing their thoughts about something. And I think sometimes that just doesn't translate as well to people. People have trouble understanding and comprehending that. And I think it takes, like, I don't know what it is, maybe imagination or something, but I think it takes a really gifted mind to really understand and appreciate poetry, because even I struggle. I constantly struggle with poetry. In fact, the kind of poetry I lean more towards is epic poetry where it tells a story. I mean, even then, I still struggle. I still get intimidated. So, and I don't think it's superior to novels. I think it's just a different type of writing, a different um, form of creative writing that is kind of cryptic and not everybody can get into it. And actually, Mary reminded me of a lot of, like, I don't know if that was really how she was as a person, but she reminds me a lot of Jane Austen's characters. Like some of her unlikable characters, like Catherine de Bourgh or Miss Elton, the one who becomes Miss Elton, or I'm trying to think of other characters that she just like there's just so many secondary characters that remind me of Mary personality wise. Like just that snobbiness and thinking that they're better than everybody else. That kind of that kind of attitude. So I don't know if that really is how Mary was, the woman who married James Austen, but yeah, it's a sad book, but I'm glad that Cassandra's getting that someone wrote about Cassandra, even if it was a fictionalized take on her. And I mean, and like I said, and I'm sure the personality stuff is real, like who she was as a person was accurate, but the events might be 50-50 as far as accuracy goes. I don't know. I'd be curious if any of you have read Miss Austen by Jill Hornby. What do you think of it? Did you like it? Because I loved it. I think it was really a great story. It just made me a little emotional, made me a little sad, and but still a really good book. So after that, I decided also to continue Jane Austen July with a book I got last year from Black Castle before it was closed. Sadly, I don't think it was getting as much business as they would have liked. And you know, if you're an independently owned business, you gotta make sure you're getting that business. But I got this from there. It's a truth universally acknowledged. 33 great writers on why we read Jane Austen, edited by Susanna Carson, and a foreword by Harold Bloom. So this is a bunch of essays on a lot of writers that love Jane Austen and why they love her and why she's still so popular today. The first one had Susanna Clarke, who wrote Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, as well as Piranesi. And then I think she wrote another book that was in between Jonathan Strange and Norrell and Piranesi, a book that takes place in the world of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. And I think she has another book coming out that takes place in that world as well. But I hope she writes other books. Like, she's a good writer, and I hope she writes other books in different types of worlds, because there's but like hers is she has a essay in here. There's other authors' names that I've heard about, but I haven't read anything about them, but their names, I recognize their names. But now I've only read up to I've only read her essay, Ian Forster's essay, Eudora Welty, and Rebecca Mead. Although Rebecca Mead is more like it's 6 reasons to read Jane Austen. So it really lists and elaborates on the reasons she thinks you should read Jane Austen. It's really interesting to see different perspectives on why they love Jane Austen, because she is a universally beloved author. Everyone's still, and there is even like you would like. It's surprising. I feel bad for saying this, but it's surprising when there's guys that read Jane Austen and love her and stuff and get into her, because you think it would be more of a female-oriented read, because a lot of guys don't necessarily. I mean, just from what I've seen, I'm not saying that's a fact or that's not a fact. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of guys who read romances, but generally speaking, it feels like it's romances are more female-oriented. So it's kind of cool to see that guys genuinely enjoy Austen and appreciate her. Um, there's like, and it was funny that in Miss Austen they talk about Sir Walter Scott, and some people and Tom Fowle's brother, Fulor. I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly or not, but I remember he is someone who mentions Sir Walter Scott and he feels like he's a superior writer. And there's actually a blurb in from him in the introduction from the editor Susanna Carson. There is a quote from him as well, from Sir Walter Scott, and he has all this praise for Austen. Like he says, that young lady had a talent for describing the involvement and feelings and characters of ordinary life, which is to me the most wonderful I've ever met with. So it's funny that like a fan can praise an author and think that they're the superior author to read from, but then they end up praising the other author they're comparing them to, and actually loves them and thinks they are great, just as great. I always find that funny how fans like they can assume that this author's work is better, but then that author doesn't like is humbled enough that they're like, well, this person that you're saying is that I'm better than, I don't feel that way. I feel like they are just as good, if not better than me. I mean, he doesn't directly say that, but I feel like the fact that he's giving praise to Austen. But anyway, so this is my current Austen read right now. And because their essays are not as long, so hopefully this won't take me as long to read. I'll have to read a few more essays today. I read some this morning when I was drinking my coffee. And I'll read some in a little bit, like after I film or something. And I gotta make sure you start reading, because if I start on my computer watching videos on my computer, then I'm gonna be spending almost the whole day the rest of the day on my computer. So if I don't start reading first, I gotta make sure I start reading first before I do that. But yeah, so anyway, okay, so I also was motivated to go ahead and pick up The Overstory by Richard Powers. This was a winner of the Pulitzer Prize. The sticker says it right there. And I feel like it's a bunch of stories within stories. I think that's what the back description says. And I know the first quote-unquote chapter, you have this character who, this family, the whole family, and it talks about the different generations in the family, and you have something I'm thinking what just happened at the end of the chapter was the most recent family member was like, I want to go do this activity, and everyone at first the night before is all gonna how to do it, but then they all change their minds. They said they don't want to go, and he's like, forget this, I'm gonna go anyway. And then like he comes back, and I think they all died. His family that got left behind, and I think it has to do with it's in the winter time, and I think it's in the past, in the 20th century, like not today, but they're all killed by the gas. I think that's what happened. And that reminded me of there's an episode of Ghost Whisperer where the ghost that she's helping a family of ghosts, and they're haunting their remaining family member, their daughter, and daughter/sister, and that's how they died. She left. She snuck out of the house, and the family got left where were like while sleeping, a gas main broke or something, and that's which is a horrible way to die. Like, you have no, especially because you have no idea that it's happening, and it makes you so weak. It looks like, and because I don't know what it does to you, but from what I've seen, it looks like it makes you weak, makes you feel lethargic, like, or kind of like when you're sick or and you're super tired, kind of like yesterday after being out in the sun out in the heat for an hour, bringing back and forth carts, and you just think, oh, I'm just sick, and you probably don't have the knowledge that, oh, this could be, maybe something's wrong with the gas. The gas is affecting me. So that is just a horrible way. And to come home, or to be the one family member that escaped it, and then to come home and find all your family dead, that's gotta be horrifying. But anyway, I'm guessing that each chapter is gonna be like a bunch of different characters' stories, and maybe they're gonna all be interconnected somehow. I know, like, the first one, I remember when this came out, at the time I was like, whatever, I don't know if I'm going to be interested in it or not, and, like, I remember seeing it at the library, but I was like, oh, it looks like a long book, and I try not to get long books from the library, because I know I'll have to keep renewing them, and I don't want to have to do that, so, like, but then I heard that Emilia Clarke from Game of Thrones, who plays Daenerys, this was on her recommended book she would recommend. It's one of her favorite books. And a lot of times that can, and I know I'm not the only one. I don't think I'm the only one who does this, where like a celebrity, or like a celebrity, whether it's an actor or singer, likes a book, recommends a book, and you're immediately, as a reader, immediately gets on your radar. It's like, oh, this person loved this book, so I'm gonna check it out. I mean, it's kind of like how, your friends, you find out your friends or someone you watch on BookTube, a booktuber that you like recommends a book, all of a sudden you're immediately considering reading that book because they love it. So you think, oh, I might love this book. And that's what happened with me in this one, is that Emilia Clarke says this is, recommends this book. So I was like, let me just check it out. And luckily, the Rose Office had the book at the time, when I was there one time. And so I grabbed it. And it was this paperback. Because I try not to buy hardbacks too often, although I have exceptions lately. Okay, so there's that. That's what I'm currently reading as well. Okay, so let's talk about what I recently purchased. So I mentioned on my last video that I was getting this book, and that is Katie Lumsden's The Secrets of Hartwood Hall, which is a Victorian historical fiction, and her newest book, The Trouble with Miss Montgomery Hearst, just came out. It is a kind of more I think it's more Regency era book, Regency and Georgian era inspired read. So I immediately put that on my Amazon wish list. But anyway, so this one is a Victorian-based novel set in 1852. And let me go ahead and read the back, or read the flap. It's 1852, and Margaret Lennox, a young widow, attempts to escape the shadows of her past by taking a position as a governess to an only child, Lewis, at an isolated country house in West England. But Margaret soon starts to feel that something isn't quite right. There are strange figures in the dark, tensions between servants, and an abandoned East Wing. Even strangers, the local gossip surrounding Miss Eversham, Lewis's widowed mother, who is regarded with suspicion in the village. Lonely and unsure whom to trust, Margaret finds distraction in the forbidden relationship with the gardener, Paul. But despite his efforts to reassure her, Margaret is certain that everyone here has something to hide. And as Margaret's own past threatens to catch up with her, she must learn to trust her instincts before it's too late. I am excited to read this. I am trying to wait, though, and not read it as soon as, Like when I buy a book, I try not to read it as soon as I buy it, which actually I should probably not do that. So I probably should read this now. Um, because what ends up happening, then those books are sitting on my shelf for for years, and I don't get to them right away. And so maybe I should consider reading this one, and I mean, which is kind of why I started reading the Overstory, because I recently bought it from Givens. Either was earlier this month or the month or back in June. I cannot remember. Because it's like I wouldn't take it. I'm thinking, well, maybe we should take advantage of that desire to pick it up and read it now, because then that desire will move on, and I'll get distracted by other books, and then I won't pick it up for years. So I really should try and read the books, my recent purchases, soon, maybe a lot sooner, rather than waiting too long. So maybe I should pick this up, start reading this now, because I'm excited to read it. I am super excited to read this, and I'm curious to see what Katie Lumsden's writing style is, and then I want to get to her new book. I'm excited to go ahead and purchase her new book. But so there is that one. Oh, and in case you're interested in her channel, if you haven't discovered her channel, if you like classic literature and historical fiction, then she's a really great channel to check out. It's Katie for Books and Things. So please check her out. Anyway, so let's look at what I got from the roast office today. Okay, so I picked out 3 books this time. So first I'm going to show you the book from the series I got. So I had accumulated the books, all of the Dark Tower books in this particular edition. And finally, I got the last one, The Dark Tower, which is book number 7, because there's 7 books altogether. Because the problem is with Books A Million, it's a chain bookstore, so it's a little bit more expensive. And I immediately saw this one, because normally the roast office, Givens, usually has the mass market editions of this, of Stephen King works, so I immediately decided, let me go ahead and grab this before I miss the opportunity. Because my only other option is either Thrift Books or Books A Million, and Books A Million is a little bit more expensive. This book would be like $20, or a little bit more than 20, like maybe $21 if I got it there. And then Thrift Books, there's no guarantee that I will get this edition. There's a chance I might not get the one that I want, or by the time I'm feeling like I can comfortably shop on Thrift Books, because I'm not going over budget, it will be like, then it might disappear. So, and also, Thrift Books is still a little bit more, I mean, it's still a used bookstore, so it's not like $20 to $30, but it's not cheap either. Like, it still costs a little bit more depending on the edition you want there than at the Givens, where the most expensive book is like $5-6. But that's only like the more special books. Like the basic, paperbacks, regular size paperbacks are like $4, and then mass markets are $3. So it's still a little bit cheaper to just buy at Thrift Books. For me to buy at the used bookstore right down the road. But the only reason I will shop in Thrift Books is also because there's no guarantee all the books that I want will be at Givens. And also there's no guarantee they'll be like sci-fi fantasy books. And actually I talked to, I guess she's the one running, I don't know if she's the one in charge, or like, second in command. I don't know, but I was talking about it in like how she's not a fan of the aesthetic of Books a Million, how it's set up and everything. It's not good for business. She feels like it's not a good atmosphere, not good for business, the way they're organized. And so we were talking about it, and like I said, I did mention, I did caveat it by saying not to, offend or criticize this store because I love this store, but I did point out that the only thing is it does limit, it still is, there's still some limitations. Like there's still not a lot of fantasy sci-fi books at Givens. So, and it's not like she got offended. At least she didn't seem like she got offended by that. Like she was aware of that, and it's because the store reflects the people that live here. It's a store that, the people, their products are donations. So unless someone's going to donate those kinds of books, and what I should have added to her was that I would donate that kind of stuff, but I'm still kind of reading through my books. So I don't always have anything to donate, especially when it comes to fantasy. So, but I do make sure I donate there. Like, it's just, I don't have a lot of, but if I'm going to donate, it's not, but then of course when I donate something, I'm not going to want it back. So I'm waiting for people to donate books that, that I want, that I didn't already have before. But anyway, I was very happy to see there was like a lot of the books from this series a handful of the books from this series were there. Like number 5 and number 6 was there. I don't think I saw 1, 2, or 3 though, or even 4. I think I only saw 5, 6, and 7. And now 7 is gone, and there's this one. So I'm happy that this one was there, so I have looked the whole thing. And it's like, and oh my god, this is so much longer than book number 6. 6 looks so short compared to this one. Like, it's, it's still longer than the first book, The Gunslinger. But it's so weird, but it's weird that book number 6 is, like, a bit shorter. And I know that people like Mike from Mike's Book Reviews were not 100%, in their opinion, they were not completely happy with the last book number 6, I think. I don't know if he wasn't necessarily happy with the ending of, even though he loves the series, he wasn't happy with the ending of the series, I think. Don't quote me on that, though, because I know a lot of people have assumed that he didn't love the series as much as he claims he did, which is not true. In fact, he did a whole video where he explained the common misconceptions about him and his channel. And that was one of them. People assumed because he didn't like the ending of Dark Tower. And I think he also admitted that it's been a long time since he's read the whole series. Which, that reminds me, I need to get back to The Wizard in Glass. But now I have the whole series in this edition. Okay, so I want to show you that first, since that's part of a series. Okay, so the last books, it was between the book I'm about to show you, and this book on Veni Vidici. It's a famous Italian phrase, I think. I don't know how to say it, but it was between that one and the book that I ended up getting. And that was a nonfiction, which I'm surprised it was out in the fiction. Like, I feel like it should have been in the vault, but I remember not getting it, so I put it back where I remember finding it. But I feel like they should put it in the vault, which I should have let them know. I should have told them. It's like, okay, there was one of the books I was thinking about buying. It looks like it's nonfiction, and it was not in the vault. So it was, but I did put it back just in case. I went it back where I found it, in the fiction section. I don't know if maybe I should have just put it in the vault. But anyway, so that was a nonfiction on some history on Rome, which like I said, I was thinking about getting it, but I didn't want to get 4 books. So I decided to come back to it, but I did take a picture of it so I can, either look for it on Thrift Books or maybe put on my Amazon wish list. Probably more along the lines of Thrift Books purchase rather than Amazon purchase, because, it's not like it's probably not an absolute necessary book. It's just like I've been trying to get as many books on Rome as possible. And maybe back when I was all like focusing on learning more about Rome, I would have got it. And now, though I've moved on a little bit, I mean, I still want to know about Rome, of course. It's still a topic I'm interested in. But it's not like I'm not hard pressed or super excited to buy books on Rome again. I'm gonna ignore that. Something about Apple Watches that you can, like, all your activity, you have a, make sure you do your, exercise and all that, and I constantly get notifications too, it's time to stand. But I'm just gonna ignore that for now and come back to it. So the one I ended up getting was The Emperor of Ocean Park, which I've looked at this book before. This is a bit of a thriller about this famous African-American family. They're part of the upper middle class, and the family patriarch, he is, let me see if it says, he's a judge in a disgraced former Supreme Court nominee. He dies, and our main character, Talcott Garland, thinks he might have been murdered. And Talcott is a law professor. And also another subplot is he and his wife are having problems, and they're thinking about getting divorced. I think that's what it said. And a lot of people say it's kind of more of, it sounds like it's more of a literary thriller rather than a fast paced, like a, I just read one of her books. I can't remember her name. But, like, a lot of those thrillers, like, a lot of the popular, very fast-paced one where, it's very, like, just next step and the next step. Anyway, sorry, I'm stumbling on explaining myself, but this seems more literary, more slow-going story. Like, it doesn't really, like, a lot of people's reviews where, like, it took a long time to get to the actual, the mystery part, the murder mystery, and trying to solve the mystery. But I thought I would, I was considering to decide to check it out. And maybe, just because, and I think sometimes, like, I look at those 3-star reviews to try to be a little as close to fair as possible when reading reviews, because there's no, just because it's a bad review doesn't mean you'll agree. And that's why I read it, because I think about, okay, well, what this person says in the review doesn't mean I agree with them. Am I gonna, like, I use that to determine, like, is this similar to how I would feel, basically. And as it's funny, some of the reviews I was reading, it was for a different book, because there was the other option I had was, I can't remember what it's called. It's a known title. I've heard the title before, so I've heard of the book before, but now I can't remember what it was called. But it was a title that I was familiar with, that I remember hearing, but now I don't remember what it was. But obviously, it was a different book than The Emperor of the Ocean Park. It wasn't this one, but the reviews, I think it was one of the 1-star reviews. They were very passionate about their dislike of the book. It was a very ranty kind of review, and I know some of the comments of people that disagree with the review, like, one of them pointed out how you shouldn't, like, sometimes we had a bad habit of letting reviews influence us, and maybe I do have that habit too. I don't know. Because I do, when I'm at the Givens and trying to decide what books I want to buy, I like to read at the reviews, particularly the 3-star reviews, just to make sure I'm being fair to the book. And because I feel like those reviews would be fair. But in this case, in the case of this book, I did the 1-star review. I was looking and saying, okay, what makes it so bad that the person gave it a 1-star review? I'm just curious. I don't remember what that book was called. When I'm done filming, it's gonna pop in my head. But yeah, I think they might have somewhat of a point. I imagine a lot of us are influenced by reviews, especially if it's someone we like, if whether it's like someone we watch on BookTube or like someone we're friends with, genuine friends with. Like, I mean, when I say friends, I don't mean like, oh, you subscribe to them or something. I mean like actual someone you hang out with and talk to on every day, or at least on a regular basis. That's that kind of friendship I mean. Not the, but anyway, so this sounds just really kind of interesting. I wanted to give it a shot. Like, the idea of a more literary mystery kind of story and a family dramas. I always consider giving family dramas a chance. And I don't always I take too long before I actually pick it up. I don't ever and that's I always and then they sit there and then I decide, oh, I'm not interested in this anymore. So I'm trying to change that. And the good news is, even if I end up changing my mind about this book and not wanting to continue with it, I only spent on this. If I had just got this book, I would only spend $4 on it. So I as usual, I only spent $12 altogether. So yeah, this sounded really fun and kind of it sounds like an engaging story. Okay, so the last book I bought was a classic, and that is The Most a P.G. Wodehouse. P.G., this is, I'm guessing, a collection of some of his stories, maybe his novellas. The most lavish P.G. Wodehouse collection ever published. In addition to Wodehouse's best-known and beloved Jeeves and Bertie stories, the most P.G. Wodehouse features delightful stories about the Drones Club and its affable, vacuous members. Mr. Milner, who's considering judgment on any and all topics, is drawn from the experiences of his innumerable relatives. Stanley Featherstone, Uckridge, the man of gilt-edged schemes, and Lord Elmsworth, ruler of all he surveys at Blandings Castle. Founding the collection are Wodehouse's witty golf stories and a completely hilarious style of quick service. As Jeeves would say, the mind boggles, sir. Oh, and David Foster Wallace blurred this. Timeless and funny. And Evelyn Wow. I got one of her books, but I don't know how to say her last name. Mr. Wodehouse's idyllic world can never stale. He will continue to release future generations from captivity that may be more irksome than our own. He is a world for us to live in and delight in. So I remember hearing a lot about Wodehouse, especially from Emma from Bookish Princess. She talks about Wodehouse a lot. I think even Katie from Books and Things, Katie Lumsden, also talks about P.G. Wodehouse, and I think so does Kate Howe. And I saw this and I was like, you know what, let me just check it out. Let me, and it is not, like I said, it's not, as the back description states, it does not have the, Jeeves and Bertie stories, but, which maybe I'll have to look those up if I like this collection. Although, I guess there is some, Jeeves stuff in this. The Purity of Turf, The Great Sermon Handicapped, The Metropolitan Touch, Jeeves in The Song of Songs, Jeeves in The Impending Doom. But, anyway, I've heard a lot about this author, how he's really funny and charming, and, so I thought I'd go ahead and grab it. Just kind of start out with something that's not as well, the stuff that's not as well known by the author, because you hear a lot about his Jeeves and, his stories about, the, Jeeves and everything, the butler and his, master, which is, I don't know if it's Bertie or someone else, because I distinctly remember the name Wolchester, or something like that. But when people refer to Jeeves. Anyway, I'm wondering if that's why people always people when they think of butlers, old English butlers, they call them Jeeves. They they refer to them as that in like a very rude way. Maybe that's why where that came from. That PG Woodhouses. Anyway, so that's what I got. Well, again, I'd love to know if you are participating in Jane Austen July. If you are, what are you reading? Are you reading any of her novels? Any of her juvenilia? Are you reading anything that is any of her contemporaries, like Mariah Edgeworth, or Fanny Burney? Maybe you're reading some of those. If not, if you're not reading anything that's with Jane Austen, then I would love to know what you're currently reading. Have you bought any books lately, or are you using the library currently? I've been hesitant to go back to the library because I'm trying to read all my own books because, like in the library, I prioritize my library books because I eventually have to return them. So I don't end up getting to my own books because I take so long to read my because if I get more than one library, borrow more than one library book, then, I'm going to be it might take me longer to read those. So if you yourself are going to the library, I would love to know, and I'd love to hear what books you've recently borrowed from the library. And if you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Click subscribe if you haven't already, and you want to learn more, watch more of my videos, and you can click the bell icon if you want to be notified when I post those videos. But I am very sporadic about it. And I hope you are currently enjoying your reading, and I will talk to you all later. All right, bye!